So today I'm going to do something a little different. I'm using my shitty mic today, so apologies in advance. But honestly, I just kind of wanted to sit down and talk for a little bit. No big challenge video, no screaming or anything. Um, just talking. Because there's been a lot of stuff on my mind lately, and I know I'm probably not the only person feeling this way. Now, obviously, you could probably get a much better explanation about this stuff from somebody smarter than me, like, some therapist or something, or some guy on YouTube with like a perfect lighting and studio setup and everything else. But I've been feeling a lot of burnout lately, and not really burnout in the creative sense, more like burnout, like just having trouble going and doing the same thing I've been doing every day. I've got a job, and I've had this job for a few years now, and I feel like I'm not alone in this, but the years have started to meld together. And most days I feel like I'm just trying to survive. And I feel like I'm not alone in that. It's the type where I just wake up tired and you go to work tired and you come home tired and then somehow you stay awake until 2 in the morning because your brain refuses to accept that tomorrow is already happening and there's not really any getting out of it. I think adulthood kind of tricks you in a sense. I feel like when you're younger, everybody talks about life and this freedom, and especially jobs in particular, like they're this huge milestone. Like once you get one, you're finally contributing to the workforce. You're making money that will allow you to do the things that you never were able to before. It's like the moment everybody tells you your life is going to start making sense, and nobody really prepares you from the reality that most jobs are basically just repeating the same week until you die. And I don't just mean jobs like food service either. It's most customer service jobs or being a mechanic that can do it to you. But there's only so many brake jobs you can do until you realize that the brake system on pretty much every vehicle is very similar. Some of them are bigger than others, and and it's really nasty work and very hot work if you live, down south in especially the USA. And it really all does sound a bit dramatic. Like most people just deal with it, and a lot of people come to terms with it a lot sooner than I did. But it's just very frustrating. And another thing I mean about burnout is that it kind of just resets your personality. Like I feel like I used to be this bouncy, happy-go-lucky guy that I'd make jokes and mess with people and bring up the day around of everybody around me because I didn't really know yet how they were feeling, and now I do. And now I don't know what to do with it. And so now everybody just feels that way. And you start to become short with people, at least I have personally. And it's not because they actually did anything wrong. It's just your social battery never fully recharges at night like it's supposed to, or like you're told it's supposed to. And then somebody at work asks you one more question, and then suddenly you feel like you got to fight. I mean, really, someone looks at me or makes a little snide remark, I feel like I have to fight them. Not really. And the worst part, I think, is that you can bring that frustration home with you and it kind of leaks into everything you do, even if you are doing something different. And it's that frustration that kind of follows you that makes it worse for everybody around you. And I feel like people underestimate how close burnout and depression actually feel the same in a lot of times. And you're not really enjoying the things you used to that used to bring you happiness, and everything starts feeling like daily maintenance to a degree. You're eating, you're sleeping, you're answering texts, you're going outside, you're starting the car, you're going to work, you're getting in the car, you're going home, you're doing whatever you need to do. You eat, sleep, shit constantly. And another thing that's frustrating is people hit you with kind of meaningless advice like, try waking up earlier, or you know, try getting some routine in. I know one that my dad used to tell me all the time was just be a man, deal with it. That's what the rest of your life is going to look like. You are going to do this every day until you either die or retire. And it's better if you die on the job because you'll be even more bored at the house. And I just don't feel like there's much that can be done about it in most cases. And a big part of that is a lot of people will turn to substance as a way out because no matter what's happening or where you're at, what you're doing, what time it is, most of the substances feel the same. You could be high at work, high at home, high having the worst day of your life, and you're still going to be high. It kind of just is a buffer between you and the outside world, and it has a mind of its own once it gets started. I've had substance abuse issues in the past that I'm not going to get into today because it really does help to a degree in the short term, and even in the long term, it can feel like helping. It may help you get to tomorrow, but what about the day after that? And then it starts compounding other issues depending on how much money you're spending and things like that. But another thing that people kind of start to fall in with is the loneliness. The loneliness can really accentuate burnout. And a lot of people just feel that, maybe if I had that one perfect person, it would make it all better. And, sometimes that can be the case for some people. But in other cases, you like the idea of it, and the idea of finding that person is what gets you going, and not so much the person, because the person could get on your nerves just as much as the rest of the world does. And following that and holding on to that before you've ever even really learned how to deal with your own problem can be detrimental to not only yourself and get you in either a better or a worse place than where you started. Because if you can't learn to live with yourself, how could you expect somebody else to drag you up with them and expect it to be stable and last? Um, on a different note, what you can try to do and what's been helping me personally is trying to find creative outlets, even if it's to nobody, even if it's just to yourself. Something that's helped me is I play my guitar and I'll, make videos that nobody's ever gonna see. Obviously, everybody wants to be a YouTuber and be rich, and then that's another thing I feel like is I need my job for money, because if I don't have money, I'll be in a physically worse state. But I hate going to my job to make the money, and if I quit, I'll be worse off because I don't have money. But if I stay, I'll be worse off because I can't stand it anymore. I don't think there's really a way to fix burnout outright that's easy or safe, because I know a lot of people you get so frustrated with your situation that everything feels temporary. Or I know a big thing that I hear all the time is, I'm not going to be around very much longer, so, stick it out till tomorrow, and that may get you through the day, and it may keep you going at a short term, but on the long term side of it, you're still waking up every day doing the same thing. Not to mention the job market is terrible. If you have a job, keep it, because I can tell you right now that the other option is way worse, especially if you don't have a support net. But I find faking it sometimes help. Faking it till you make it, so to speak, is a good way to get through, because eventually you start to believe your own lie in some cases and you actually do feel better. And happy places are a good thing, especially on that 30-minute lunch break. You don't have much time. You're thinking about wolfing down your food, but for the other 15 minutes, maybe you can sit in a different place than you usually do. If you're constantly in your car, maybe you take a walk down the street. Or, when you're off work, maybe go do that thing that you don't normally do. Something that I find to help quite a bit is something as simple as don't go to the gas station you're always stopping at. And that seems to help me because it feels like I did something. Maybe not something profound, but something different. And that's really where the repetitiveness starts to kick in because you're doing the same thing every day, right? If you can find one thing to make the day different, you start to feel that the day is a bit less of a waste. And I have the ability personally to be able to work with my hands, and I feel good helping people, but I also get annoyed by people very easily. So it's a catch 22, but I feel like the good that you do outweighs the bad. I'm a bit of a mechanic. I do my little jobs and I make a little bit of money. I don't overcharge or try not to, but it's one of those moments that just make life feel human again. Because if especially in like customer service or food service, you'll have people that are coming up to you angry, and your main priority is not so much helping them but getting them out of your face as soon as possible. And I think that's a wrong mindset to have, even though I have it more often than not, because people are human, and especially in the food service industry or the automotive industry or any sort of customer service industry, you're selling yourself, and the product is you in most cases, especially in customer service. So if you can help somebody, don't think of it so much as they're finally gone, and really think about the good you've done, you know. And some people make that very difficult, but you can still try, and then it goes back to faking it until you make it, because you really do start to believe your own lies after a while. Modern life is exhausting in a way that I don't think our ancestors had to deal with in such a way that we do, especially because a lot of our dopamine receptors are so fried from the substance and the nicotine and the phones and everything else, because we get a hit every time we see something funny, and it fries the rest of life out. Um I think something as small as maybe not deleting everything, but deleting some socials can help people. I don't watch Instagram because for whatever reason it's the Wild West. And you go from funny cat videos to some pretty truly terrible things sometimes, which never help. And I just feel like, me especially, people are carrying a lot of stress around that they never talk about because everybody around them seems stressed too. And you're supposed to just assume that this is what adulthood feels like. And this is what, adulting and being a man in particular in my specific instance. And, just having people that rely on you is it's supposed to feel like it's supposed to be stressful and it's supposed to be repetitive because a lot of people need the same thing out of you specifically. But I don't think that you're meant to live angry all the time or frustrated with the world or just sad. And I definitely don't feel like most people are supposed to be numb to it at this point by the time they're 25. So I guess the main point of this video is that if you're feeling burnt out, look for change, and don't force it with something drastic. You're not you're probably not lazy as a person, and you're most definitely not broken. and there are others that feel this way. And, maybe if it's not your thing to come out and talk about it, just knowing that could be comforting. And I feel like time does help in these situations as well, especially when it comes down to seasonal depression and um that this year, this time 5 years ago was terrible, and you hold that with you, and people are just, they tend to be tired in ways they haven't fully dealt with yet, especially when you're younger and you realize this is what life is. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is you aren't alone, and there are ways to remedy it that are small enough that you can take them without feeling like it's such a drastic step. And a lot of people start trying to look for a way out in a way that isn't healthy, like I was saying, with substance abuse and other things like that. And I know some people even resort to something like, maybe if I was gone, I wouldn't have to deal with this, but that's not really a good way to think about it, because if you're miserable, taking yourself out is just a way to pass on that misery to somebody else, and you affect people in a way that you don't realize in most cases, and you really are, wanted by more than you realize, especially by people who you don't think about a lot, but they might be thinking about you a lot more. Just and if you're looking for a big change, something drastic that needs to happen now, just putting in applications and trying to go for better or even the same. A lot of people think money is the only thing that matters when it comes to finding a job. And in a lot of cases, you do need to be able to afford to live, but you don't always have to only consider money in a situation. And you can teach yourself things. You're not a useless person, and you don't have to teach yourself something overnight. And most things you aren't going to learn overnight. If you like working with your hands, it's relatively inexpensive to get a toolkit and get on that Chris Fix It video to try to work on your car to save yourself money. And then you feel accomplished in that way. And other people try to look into creative outlets like guitar or the drums or things of that nature. Singing to yourself can sometimes be an outlet. Music is an outlet for a lot of people, and I find that music does help me when I'm having a rough time, a rough go at it. And once you find a way to start to deal with the things that are keeping you down, a big, a big, I guess we're on to the so-called advice segment and how I deal with burnout in my daily life, and when to look for change when it is too much. Life is too short to be miserable. Because of that, you don't want to make it miserable. The big thing I'm trying to get at is if you need change, you have to make it. And I find that the change I make personally, even if it is small change, helps in such a way that You don't have to be miserable all the time. And you can try to let go of some of the things that are holding you back. No company needs you. People might, but a company doesn't. And you'll be allowed to move on and live your life. Don't let anybody say that it's childish to feel any sort of way, and or you're a man and you need to grow up, or that you are, you're a big girl now and you need to grow up, and that's not a good way of thinking about it. It's not a good way of living life, because not everybody really gets the opportunities as others. The big change and the big fix, if you wanted to call it that, for burnout, has to come from within, and it has to be a decision that you make for yourself. Nobody can make it for you. And because of that, it's a very hard decision to make sometimes, but you have to sometimes. And if change is the way that you make that decision, or if it's something as small as, going to a different gas station, then make the change. Try different things. The main thing is you don't want to give up, because then you're letting the burnout win. Because when you get up and succumb to it, then there's not much else after that, and you'll feel that way for as long as you give up. Sometimes it's forever. So the big changes that you need to make have to come from within. And you can start small or as big as you want. And realistically, you do have this. You've got it. And it's scary. Change is scary. And that's the biggest thing that keeps burnout going, and why it is such a big problem in today's society, is because change is so scary. And you've got to come to terms with that change yourself. Otherwise, you have succumbed to it. So that was my 20-minute long rant. I hope that I was able to help somebody, even if I helped nobody and you just listened along for a little bit. Um, and that's all I've got to say about it. Thank you for listening.